Aloha. Today I wanted to expand off the last video and just use this painting that my brother did a while back as a backdrop and really go into a lot of the stuff that gets avoided. Like in the last video I was talking about Christian tears or things that offend the ears and the emotions of people who still have their lives vested in a particular belief system. So when you are talking to people who have their ideas of themselves vested in a particular belief system, and you don't acknowledge that belief system as existing, or and even more than that, that belief system is actually counterproductive to the life that we are believing in right now. So it's kind of like you're breaking worlds, you're breaking universes. You exist in one universe, another person exists in another universe. And it depends on the strength of the individual to determine whether or not that relationship will continue on, or if the information at all will be processed in any healthy or organic way. The belief systems of the very nature of this society are inherently like counterproductive. They breed cancer, pretty much. This is this parasitic agenda, this parasitic mindset that puts profit over humanity, that puts destruction in the same category as peace. Like war brings peace. Like that's a reality for a lot of these people. Whether they consciously acknowledge it or not, by their beliefs in the system, it inherently agrees with so it's like a contract. By accepting this reality the way it is and saying that it's just a thing that needs to be fixed, you are in that same moment not acknowledging all of the side effects to that society and the foundations that that society has been built upon. Excuse me. So when you have information that is tied to the very foundations of the world that these people are standing upon, not just their world, but their ideas of themselves, their, like, imagine what the subconscious emotional body is going through right now of the collective woman. A collective woman who is told that these are your standards of beauty. This is what beauty is, looks like, feels like, sounds like, acts like. Mainstream media. So you have not only the people who are hating themselves, who don't meet that criteria, but simultaneously the people that they are worshiping and putting on a pedestal are are benefiting. They are the benefactors of such systems. So this is where the alchemy comes in. So you have like the alchemy of the attractiveness of a woman in reference to the mainstream media, which capitalizes off of that to sell you a hamburger, to sell you a home loan, to sell you a ring, to sell you some basketball tickets, or whatever it is. Is it possible to do this? Yes. Is it natural when you take into account all of the timelines? Not necessarily. Something's off about it. There's too much. That's where you start borderlining with the destructiveness of the reality that you have chosen to accept. And the reason why you can't talk about this stuff is because you're talking about people, essentially. You talk about Christians or Christianity, you're talking about specific people that are close to you. And with people like that, you can't really talk like that about for people who are concerned with that kind of mentality, but that's what's being put out there in the world. So you have that alchemy that exists both on the aggressive and the defensive nature of its existence. And that exists within people. So people use it for their benefit, and they use it for to victimize themselves at the same time. All of this is because this program is designed to run off of run a human program. It's like running I don't know, whatever the new iPhone or iPad, Apple processing system, the software, whatever it is. It's like trying to run that on actually a better analogy would be trying to run like a Commodore software program, or remember the Oregon Trail movie, or the video game that you used to play on those old school computers. It's like trying to run that app or that software, that design on an iPhone 10 or something like that, or something with way more processing speeds. See, this is inherently what happens when you have people chained down to these belief systems. It literally affects time. People think they live on a ball. People think that they evolved from monkeys. People are existing in these constant states of fear and artificial love. Love based on animalistic instincts and nothingness. A lot of people fall in love because, a fancy car or something. It's the way they perceive what love is, or, whatever it is. It's largely externalized because the majority of people haven't done the work personally. They haven't really loved themselves. Now, how hard it is to find love. Right now, they have all these apps. People still having difficulty. It's because the people themselves. It's the people. It's the people. It's not the apps. It's not your location. It's not whatever you think it is. It's the people itself. The individual and the collective both have zero focus on expanding the nature of the self and the balances that stop a lot of these cancers before they manifest into our reality. Because the system is designed to make its money off of parasitism. That's why they can't have too many criminals out there they have to really lock down their their business model pretty much. Like their business model is they're the biggest drug dealers, they're the biggest pill pushers, they're the biggest mind controllers, the biggest thugs, criminals, gangsters out there is the system itself. So, you know, how could you hold me accountable for $300 on an old credit card when your bosses are not being held accountable for trillions of dollars missing out of our work that we put into your ridiculous illusions? So these things are not being acknowledged, and in that lack of acknowledgement, because that's another one of those, if you look at this, it will challenge the very foundations that you stand on. Boom, 9/11. So the status quo is just to not make any big moves, make a bunch of little moves that add up overall to a big move over time. But it's a bunch of little moves and then slightly bigger moves that actually push this system over. So just like you have, so that's time stealing. That's like a universal crime, pretty much. But since you're in a dimension that allows that kind of alchemy to exist in this reality, in order for the people to do something about it or not, then you have to acknowledge and remove these parasites, these cancers that are existing largely non-physically. So this is why that's the precursor to me going into, like I said, Christian tears when you start questioning the belief systems of largely a genocidal religion. And there's so much that's involved in that system that people can't look at. Like, look at all the stuff that people say all the time. Well, there's some good stuff in the Bible, and there's some bad stuff. You know, just don't put it up there on the shelf and leave it there. It's just like a bag of shit up there. Actually do something with it. Like, acknowledge the good stuff, you know, break it apart, like, analyze it, turn it into whatever it is, and then also do the same thing with the stuff that's not so great in there, and piece it apart and then put it all back together and see if the thing, you're going to see a different picture when you do that. It's going to be completely different. So when you do that and you actually look at the evidence of destruction in this world based upon the idea of loving belief systems, like the way Christianity is. Like, look how destructive Christianity is. You call everybody else terrorists. Look at the resume of Christianity. You can look at Islam, you can look at whatever else. You can look at all the slaves that came through the Islamic beliefs, and you can run all the numbers, but the thing is, you can make any comparisons you want. The thing is, the power structure that's in play right now is alive and well today. No matter what kind of comparisons you do to something else, put all the pieces together as you see them, and then recognize and actually acknowledge what's going on so you can do something about it. So, like, this stuff isn't being acknowledged so that people can just wash over it. It's kind of like it really is like a destructive atmosphere. It's kind of like if Thanksgiving morning, like, everybody got into these big ass arguments, and you know, you still gotta make the food, you still gotta go to dinner, you still gotta, you know, talk to each other, and you still got the whole day ahead of you. So Just imagine doing that every single day. And then eventually people are just going to be like, well, let's just move on. So there's been a whole bunch of these let's just move ons, and not really acknowledging anything, not doing anything about the system as it exists. And as they just artificially heal and harm you through the news and all this other stuff, then you just kind of go along at the speed of consciousness that they have provided for you. So I was thinking about this the other day, like you get these vibes off of people, and like I said, you even have racist dogs. Like, people know what I'm talking about. They don't like, you see some of the people I know I'm talking about, some dogs out there don't like black people because their owners don't like so-called black people. There's a thing out there. So just imagine, like, look at this stuff that exists and realize, like, put it on a whiteboard somewhere. People all love all these damn whiteboards. Well, put all this information on a whiteboard and see how it exists in your reality. Because when you mention racism or white supremacy or stuff like this, you got to get over that whole, like, emotional thing. Because it exists. It existed more obviously in previous years, depending on how you look at it. And it's a very definite thing that's a part of this parasite of destruction. And by being a little iffy about even acknowledging that it existed, let alone people still think it doesn't exist, or it has nothing to do with the human story overall, you know, that's as far as you can take it however far you want. Some people that, you know, say that none of this stuff exists. You know, whatever it is that you choose, you be about your own business. But this is just how I'm observing it. So you have, you know, an old lady, any kind of old lady. I'll say this to make it more kind of personal for people who know what I'm talking about. Like, just imagine, like, because you know how Asian families stay close. They live with each other for a while. They keep their community. They keep their businesses together, their money. Everything is, like, you know, tight. So just imagine you can have, like, entire people who are closed in. Just imagine, like, an old Vietnamese grandma from somewhere, you know, lives in Oakland. She's been living in Oakland her whole life. And it could be anybody, really. I just use it as an example because it's an easy one for people who have been in this situation. This old Vietnamese grandma, she's like sweeping up outside, and she looks at you like a certain way, like something's wrong with you, like you're a criminal of some sort. Like, she feels, you see how she moves, like she creates an entire universe that involves you being a criminal and the other person being a victim, and all you're doing is walking down the street. See, this is another part of, like, white privilege that, you know, is not really acknowledged because people are so materialistic. They get caught up in, well, my bank account just as low as yours. I'm like, we ain't talking about that shit. We're talking about the psychological conditions that come along from a post-traumatic slave syndrome that exists in every single body. Not just black people, so-called black people, and so-called white people. I'm talking about everybody, given the fact that you still have a system that still utilizes these programs to build itself up as big as it can be to conquer over people now and in the upcoming years. It's still a system that will be used to project the overall system into a future. So this is what I was saying, the shift from being the big bad bullies, the big bad superheroes of the world, through war brings peace, and switching to the idea of love and light, unify everybody, unity, everything. And what happens there is that people forget about everything that happened as a result of this empire, and then they just kind of let it go. Let's move on. Can we eat the Thanksgiving dinner already? We've argued all morning. Let's just do this. I'm tired of And then, every year after that, every day, people just keep going back to work. Just go back to work. It's fine. Just keep. So that's the thing, is it's just keep people lost in the idea of love and lost in the idea of fear. The two extremes, expansion and contraction. So you have an artificial expansion. So the materialistic version of love. 18, 19-year-old, saying that they're in love. Well, they're in love from that perspective. You fall in love again at 25. You're in love from a harder perspective, a deeper perspective of yourself and the individual that you're with. Fall in love again at 35, 45, constantly. If you're growing. If not, then your relationship will be based upon the individual that you are. I mean, that's all like everyday kind of talk, but just to keep it in line in this dialogue, or this build, the relationships will be built upon the work that is and isn't being done. If you cannot talk about the relationship that Christianity has with the colonization of the entire world, that will slow your time. If you cannot talk about white supremacy and its engagement in this power grid, that will slow the time. If you cannot talk about the ridiculousness of flat earth in a mainstream perspective, if you can't talk about that, that will slow the time. Every little piece of density slows this clock down. And it's not a matter of how quickly, it's not a matter of velocity, it's a matter of efficiency. It's a motor. It's not a motor to go fast, it's a motor to run. To exist and go wherever it is. Not about going fast and not knowing where you're going. Just as long as you can go fast. That's one side of the reality. I was thinking about this the other day as far as like the endocannabinoid system being a bridge between the left and the right hemisphere. So it's not really doing anything to you. It's more that you are now having more access to a deeper part of yourself. So when you expand who you are to a higher level of observation, then you just see yourself. That changes the person when you do that. It puts more responsibility in the essence of who that individual and what that individual is. When you say, no, the cannabinoid system isn't doing anything to me. I'm experiencing this because of this relationship that I have. Same thing with psychedelics. Same things with people. People will either expand or contract you. I mean, you're always expanding, so the contraction is just at the, not in relation to not expanding. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, you're constantly on grander scales. You're constantly expanding. But the contraction is done on the micro scale. Excuse me. On the micro scale and the macro expansion. So you have the duality, the on and off, light and dark, micro and macro within the macro. So it's like a fractal, kind of like building itself over and over again. So I was thinking the other day, the endocannabinoid system is just like another bridge. It's just another bridge activator to activate between the left and the right. So we exist mostly on the left hemisphere because of the way this society is based upon. Very structured, very linear, very masculine, completely devoid of the interpretations of the true divine feminine and even the true divine masculine. It's like taking all of these very complex systems and, like I said before, trying to play an old Commodore software program on on like a quantum computer or something like that, or like a heavy duty. And since it works, like you can actually play it, this is what Western society is. People are like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Maybe someday we'll get into the specs, the capabilities of our iPhone 10 experience in the future when they discover it. The same people that told you you're not shit, you're worthless, from the Big Bang and the monkey evolution and all that animalistic programming that says this is what humanity's all about. It's not what humanity's all about. This is what's Western society. Your definition of humanity is not a definition of humanity. You're being in like the general interpretation if somebody were to give you some kind of rundown of what humanity is. Your definition, largely, that general definition will come from, it's like a Wikipedia observation. It'll give you some very general based upon Western society. Just like Facebook and Yahoo, or Yahoo and YouTube, they won't put any kind of mind expanding or consciousness expanding information in the trending, in a sense of just questioning your reality. Like, is there something wrong with that? Apparently in that system there is, because that's how they control. So just like they control by demonizing, simultaneously it's the fear and the love. The fear of the divine feminine energy that exists inside of everybody. It's the fear that will awaken and destroy the kingdom of the divine masculine that has been bastardized into this stupid ass system that we're existing underneath today through the Greco-Roman Empire. So yes, you have all these sub-factions of the Zionists, the Zionists and all that, the Jewish influence with the mainstream media and all this other stuff. All these are all parts of the power grid. So when people stop, they get off the train of piecing how all this stuff fits together, they say, well, I got it, it's the Jews. Well, I got it, it's the Anunnaki. Well, I got it, it's the reptilians. Well, I got it, it's nothing. It's just wait for the aliens to come and save this. Or I got it, it's just wait for Bernie Sanders. Or I got it, let's wait for the next Barack Obama. Whatever those programs are, it's up to the individual to wear that, because they're choosing what time it is, how fast their clock moves. And like I said, there's a universal clock that you tap into that is your flow in a relationship with the flow of this experience. And that's what, like I said, the blending or the activating of the two hemispheres, the bridging of the two hemispheres, allows you to step into that space. So this is why when you so-called get high and then you're like chilling, is because you're not so high-strung and logical and linear. Look how like what's that dude's name on the Big Bang Theory TV show? Just imagine like a very high-strung Sheldon is his name, like a high-strung, very logical, completely all logical, nothing else. It's very stressful, it's strenuous, but that kind of reality exists every day in the norm. And what's going on is that people are not really acknowledging that that is unhealthy. It's a result of something very destructive, and if something's not done about it, then it would only get worse. So people like the Thanksgiving dinner, people are just saying, you know what, don't worry about that, let's just eat this meal and have this good Thanksgiving. So inherently what happens when you do that is that nobody's actually talking about the stories themselves. Nobody did anything with the arguments. Nobody did anything with and then after all that, which is actually before all of that, you still have Thanksgiving itself. Nobody's going to talk about Thanksgiving. If like the Native American perspectives of Thanksgiving, if you have a distraction of Donald Trump out there. So just as they were bringing you all together in love and hope with Barack Obama, they're bringing you all together in hatred, comedy, and fear with Donald Trump. It's a game for children. And they're playing you by playing your emotional body, by playing your focus, your consciousness, your time, your clock, your relationships on every level. They're playing you. And since you're so caught up in the game that they're playing you with, you'll never be able to activate your true function, because their game only works through your dysfunction. Your dysfunction is what fuels this system. So you're out of balance nature. So they lock you in with the legal name program right out of the gate, literally out of your mother's vagina. You're given a birth certificate, a name. You're certified with like basically a UPC code for this system actually. And then through the most learning years of your life, you're in an indoctrination program that destroys the divine feminine, amplifies an egotistical version of the divine masculine, and sells you this half-baked, half-working system as the end-all be-all. And literally everything that they have built upon this system is destructive. It's garbage. So the norm of a person's reality is okay if it's garbage. It's okay if, that's what's acceptable. So the bar is set real low for your leaders. The bar is set real low for expansion and the people overall. It's set really, really low. And they don't have to do much. And since that bar is set so low, they also don't have to talk about much. They don't have to really do anything. So in that limbo space, they can hold you accountable because they have this idea of authority coming from their ancestors who destroyed and manipulated everything to be a certain way. Like the land that you're on right now, if you're in the United States, they took this land because they said they as in a people, they as in a mindset that controls a people. Not as simple as white people. I'll get into that in a second because that's some more basic ass Ritz cracker bullshit really going on here. I can't really go into the depths of it because there's so many different depths that you want to go to. I'm just going to go into the one that most people don't want to go into when I talk about, like white culture and this. What is this? What is this whole idea of black and white and how it affects us? I'll close it on that. But yeah, you can't talk about this information with people because it threatens their comfort zones. So that's the thing, is people won't change. They don't want to change. They just want to be okay, be liked, be acknowledged on social media. So everything is being synthesized onto social media. So you really don't have a real life. You have an electro-life. And the system that benefits the system largely because you have less threats to the system. So, is white a people? No. Is black a people? No. Is white a mindset? Is black a mindset? Yes, I would say both. But that doesn't make a person. But do mindsets actions or foundations to these actions? Yes, they do. So accepted mindsets over time, based upon historical facts, create your reality. So when you have an accepted fact that Osama bin Laden bombed the World Trade Centers, and you have an accepted fact that JFK was killed by Oswald, you have an accepted fact that we needed to be in Vietnam, accepted fact that they did syphilis experiments on people all over the world, actually in South America, but the one I'm referencing is the Tuskegee experiments. So you have all of these things that are not being acknowledged, that are at the foundation of this empire. Flat Earth is just one of them, or heliocentrism, I should say, is just one of them. That religion is just one system of the many systems that exist that are pillars of this reality. And you can't talk a lot about this stuff because people haven't done that work. So they're not going to allow you to break their pillars down because they haven't done that work themselves. So what happens is you have a lot of people yelling and screaming, but they're not really pinpointing anything. They're not really putting anything into perspective and anchoring it into anything because they haven't anchored themselves. So what happens is there's no acknowledgement and as a result, no healing at all. So this is like some people used to do in my family, and I acknowledged it because I saw it as an actual alchemy, and I was like, wait a second, we all know who you're talking to. You just have to do some basic math and see that you're talking to me or you're talking to this person, but you're not really talking to them. So what I explain that is like an example of that is talking to the air. So like if somebody comes in the house and just be like, for example, just say like mom's comes in the house and then she's like, man, I've been working all day and y'all can't even clean up these damn dishes or y'all can't even vacuum the damn floor or something like that. Well, if there's two people in the house, one's been there all day, the other one just walked in, you know that they're not talking to, that mom is not talking to the air, that mom is talking to that person who was home all day. And then depending on the dynamics of the situation, whoever else is gonna, take care of the situation, what was being brought up. But the thing is, there's no direct conversation. There's no focus. Like, how different is it to talk to the air and then to talk to the individual? To talk to the individual is actually dealing with the work that hasn't been done, the situation that needs to be acknowledged and healed. To talk to the air gets the job done. And it's nice in a sense, but nice, this is an example of nice not necessarily being the right thing to do in that situation. Over time, obviously not, because nobody really gets the big picture of what's going on here. And a lot of people can get taken advantage of in those kinds of situations because some people are just, like that. They'll just close the gaps. So you have that existing in society as a whole. So when you talk about, this is the thing, this colonial program went, nation to nation, and this is still existing today. This is why I talk about this today. And then people, like I've been hearing in these flat earth circles, people talking about auto believers and auto hoaxers. But there's also something, an auto deflector. Auto deflectors are the individuals who, when you're talking about something that's very important, but it's not important to their world or it challenges their belief systems, they will deflect to another storyline. So you have auto deflectors, which are just another like part of auto believers and auto hoaxers. It's just another way of explaining that. But auto deflectors are individuals like who don't want to talk about the human story, who want to talk about flat Earth as if it's separate from the human story, as if it's like you can talk about that, but you can't talk about this. Like, what's wrong with you, man? Those are auto deflectors because they haven't pieced that together. What's really going on here? Like I said, tomorrow, if CNN breaks flat Earth, if all the mainstream goes flat Earth tomorrow, now what? Now what? What now? You're going to be faced with the human story again. If you don't do the work and make the connections now, you'll be setting yourself up for failure in the future. So, back to the questions. Is whiter people? No. Is blacker people? No. These are all ideas, illusions that were created. Now that you have said no, now you have to ask yourself, don't just leave that floating in the air, like talking in the air. If you're not white, what are you? If you're not black, what are you? And don't go looking in the back of the book for the answer sheet. Read the whole damn book and figure it out. Your whole storyline, which is our whole storyline. See, people want to take half of this story, half of this work, because that's easy. It's like, oh no, just do half the work and I'll do the other half. That's how we got into this situation in the first place. Where the land was stolen and people turned into these materialistic beasts and start worshiping it. And simultaneously hating themselves. So these are the balances I was talking about. You have the people that are beaten down because of these psychological systems, and then you have the people that benefit from that. You can't talk about either one. You can't talk about, getting beat down from it, and you sure as hell ain't gonna talk about white privilege. You can't talk about that. That's one of the benefits, not the only benefit. This is one of them. Redlining. These are benefits. Not even into the psychological, like I said earlier, which is the deepest thing. It affects people's lives. The way they eat, the way they drink, the way they have relationships. Affects everything. So, is white a culture? Well, if you ask yourself that, well, what would that culture be based upon? Well, look through the history. Point of all these questions is, does it exist? Not to shut down and be like, well, that's old ways of thinking. But to ask yourself, well, if it's not a people, it's not a culture, then what actually is it? Like I said with you. Like, if you're not white and you're not black, then what actually are you? You go, oh, I'm human. You got that from the answer key in the back of the damn book. It's the easy route. What are you? Who are you? After having read all of the books of the past, the present, and the future. At least starting with the past. These new age people want to start with the future. Oh, the Pleiadians and the Andromeda Galaxy are going to come and save everything. Doo, doo, doo. We're so spiritual. I'm such a star seed. You're such a star seed. so so empathic. I'm so tuned in to what? What you tuned into, huh? Another cartoon? That's why the New Age is beneficial for the New World agenda, the New World Order, this new style of mentality. They're not a threat. They're based upon deflection, looking the other way. They're no threat to this system. None. They're going to use them, just like the Flat Earth mainstream chapter. They need people to be the pin cushion for the notes that get penned out and for the rest of everybody else. They can't just stick it in nothing. They have to have some kind of baseline there. And the people out there who are selling this commercial version of Flat Earth without going into the human story, and in fact talking shit about other people who are not going into it, they're doing the work for them. So it's not a people, it's not a culture. Could you put some stuff in that box if it were a culture? Okay, what is it? Go through the history. What is the culture of white people? I mean, you can go through the culture of black people. See how that difference the sound is? It even feels different. You know, like show some images of black culture. And you can go all over the world. You know, show white culture. Just say if it was a kid, obviously. And you're like, okay, they'll find whatever it is. They'll find it'll be based upon whatever. But point being, it can be pieced together in some kind of way. Is it still an illusion? Of course. So what is it? It's a mindset. It was created. It was invented to have an effect. What was that effect? That effect exists in mainstream religions, all of them. If you want to put a head religion on that, obviously Christianity. These are the power structures that still exist today. Just because it's uncomfortable to talk about this stuff doesn't mean it doesn't need to be talked about or it doesn't exist. That kind of thinking slows the clock, slows your ability to, like the endocannabinoid system, bridge the gaps between you and the universe. That work that has just, it's just like, I don't want to do that. I just want to look the other way. Or I just want to take the easy way out. It's easy. They make it easy for you to choose the easy routes. Because those easy routes are designed for them to make a profit off of your lack of depth. Your lack of knowledge, information, and foundations, roots. You don't have any roots. So you accept whatever artificial roots are presented to you. Heliocentrism, monkey evolution, the Big Bang, quantum mechanics, and all this other stuff that's astrophysics and all this stuff that's being sold to your reality. It's lazy. They can put a bunch of numbers in a bunch of books and make it look official. But, you know, why? Same question, the same kind of work is done when they make a lot of politics, this bureaucracy, this whole democracy, capitalism, all this complexities of this system, how long it takes for things to change. That's to affect the universal clock. And that's also to make it look official. Like this stuff is so official that any other way would just be nonsense. We're the best of the best of the best. So don't even question this reality. Just do it. And once you start questioning it, it will start to see you as a threat. And it will kick you to the curb. So this is where you're seeing YouTube videos get kicked in the, in the side. Like my biggest YouTube video on this channel was just hit with all kinds of restrictions on it. It's not even monetized. But the one with the most views on here, and it wasn't even a lot, really. They like stopped showing the view count. They restricted it, put a little guideline thing on there, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, all this stuff exists. I mean, they mess with the views. This has all been confirmed. I've seen views go down. Subscriber rates continually keep going down. Big chunks at a time. I mean, it's everything in order to hide this, the foundations of this system, because it's inherently a threat to go into this information. So anyway, it's a mindset. And if you can't talk about the mindset and the side effects of that mindset, it's kind of like post-traumatic slavery syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. There's going to be effects on people. And it's not going to be great. And if you don't do anything about it, then it's just going to get worse. So like that Thanksgiving dinner, everybody's just acting like everything is okay. That's the atmosphere of the society overall. Society is acting like everything is okay. Why? Because that's the status quo. That's what's okay. Everything is just like, it needs to be okay so we can have Thanksgiving dinner. So white is not a culture. White is not a people. It's a mindset. But at the same time, it still does exist in some kind of way. It's like an invisible culture. So the invisible culture of things you can't say, things you can't address, acknowledge, things you can't question. This is all the invisible culture. They painted it black and white so you can just get lost in that, because that has some very definite natural existences in this physical and non-physical reality. But they painted it in a way that is it's deceptive. So it's an invisible culture that tells you that you have freedom. Are you free? Of course not. Are you free in comparison to a lot of other people? Of course. But why aren't those people free? Well, because the same boot and system that you're underneath today that says you're not free in this light version, diet, not freedom. Those people were just, beat down with that boot before, however many decades or centuries ago. So it's the same not freedom. But they tell you, since you're more free than them, be thankful. So that's the fear and the love. That's another good example of the fear and the love. So you don't want to be like this. Be thankful that you're, not like this. You could be like that. So be afraid. Now, love us for being in the situation that you're in right now. But how did you create this? Don't ask any questions. Genocide. No, don't ask any questions. Just be thankful. Thanksgiving. This is Thanksgiving. The whole system. My brother did this painting he was in school. This is one of the ones that he actually framed. Like 2014, probably spring of 2014. I think that was it. Yeah. This is before I went into any of the flat earth stuff. Just before. So, yeah. It's an invisible culture, so it's an invisible parasite, it's an invisible cancer, and it won't become cleared until it becomes visible. So it won't become visible until you acknowledge it. So this is why I said until you can't walk forward with 2 broken legs. You can't go into the future until you heal yourself, the wounds of the past and the wounds of the present. See, people who are in the mainstream mentality of flat earth, they're like, no, 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 no. We just need to get this done, and the system will fix itself. Everything will be okay. Don't start bogging us down with all these old mentalities. Oh, you're talking about racism and all this. No, that's just old thinking. We're all one because the earth is flat. So let's just think about that and move on, okay? No different than we're all one because we're all star seeds from a new age mentality. It's the same thing. What's happening is that inherently the information is not being acknowledged that holds up the pillars of this destructive system. And you have people not healing themselves and people not being able to move anywhere under the illusion that they are getting somewhere. They're not. They're in a box on a hamster wheel. This is why all of these political programs are based upon jobs. It's like your doggy tree. It's like, oh, want some more jobs? Come on, come on. You want some more jobs? You want some more jobs? I know you want some more jobs. Come on, come on. There you go. Oh, jobs. Thank you, jobs. Yeah, a lot of times they yell jobs on these damn political things. Jobs, 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 jobs. More job, 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 job. Hope, 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 hope. Change, 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 change. Freedom, freedom, freedom forever. Living in a cartoon.